Monopoly was invented. What a phenomenon it's been. Of course, now it's international policy, but there it is. Of course, that famous moment when Neville Chamberlain thought he stepped off the plane looking tired but relieved and promised he'd never fly Ryanair again. That was a unique dinner, this. A unique dinner. It's the only dinner when people complain they're not being given plastic cutlery to use. But all right, I'll scrub that one. Don't do that. I enjoyed the dinner. I'm not exactly a vegetarian. I'm sort of semi-vegetarian. I only eat vegetarians. But so I went for the fish option. I had poisson à l'espagnol, which is it's like Spanish fish basically, which is fine. It's just like British fish. In fact, until a few years ago, it was British fish, but you can't do better than that. Yes. I'm honoured to be speaking after the very Scottish President, Callum Forsyth, yes, indeed. And he was wearing not the Forsyth tartan on his kilt; it was the BPF tartan with the small checks, I do a lot in Scotland, as I explained in a moment. In fact, last week I was speaking at the Royal Bank of Scotland Christmas party. They had it early because there's a 2-for-1 deal at Pizza Hut, so that's why But because I'm sort of Scottish myself, I have Scottish parents, Scottish grandparents, and under the rules of international sport, that means I could play for Ireland. So I suppose I'm really sort of half English, half Scottish. So for breakfast I have toasted crumpets with deep-fried Benson and Hedges. That's I was brought up on the borders of Middlesex and Hertfordshire, but anyway, the borders. My father was a Scottish bank manager. I mean, these are the days when bank managers were bank managers, and very careful, I'd say, with his his death certificate said he died for financial reasons. But shortly before he died, he was very kind of he sold me a photograph of himself as a boy. It was that kind of thing. But I don't want to worry you, Callum, but Scotland is famous for its unhealthy diet and unhealthy conditions. I spent a lot of time there, but this has been refuted. Apparently this is much of a rumour, really. It's a myth, and Scotland doesn't have an unhealthy diet. This was denied by Scotland's oldest man, Bruce Rose, aged 32. So. But I do follow the sort of English and Scottish, London and Glasgow side to my character, and I'm proud of both areas in a way. And I think nothing illustrated that more was that response to terrorism, which we had a year or so ago. Some people, I think there's a trial at the moment, so it's sub judice, but some people tried to drive a car, 4x4, into Glasgow Airport. And the Glasgow response was fantastic because the cars drove in. There's a guy with 90% burns, the attacker on the ground, and the Glaswegian response was to go over and kick him. That is the perfect Glasgow response. But in London we had a similar thing. It was a slightly different approach. There was somebody trying to set off a bomb in the Haymarket outside a club. And with all the resources we have MI5, MI6, Interpol, we have the security services, police. Of course, they knew nothing about it, but the bomb was foiled, the plot was foiled, because they parked on a double yellow line. And the car had been towed away before they could ignite it. That is London at its finest, but that's what I... But, as I say, I'm keeping away from the subject of plastic, because I don't know anything about the subject at all. I am to plastic what Anne Widdecombe is to designer drugs, or Tony Blair was to socialism, or George Osborne is to picking his holiday destination. Michael Barrymore is to Baywatch. When I've done him, Baywatch. Bill Clinton was to humorous. No, I know that. So I was a lawyer. That was my major thing for many years, and. You're not popular as a lawyer. I don't know why. Nobody likes lawyers. In fact, somebody just described me as a filthy sewer rat, slimy toad. In fact, sometimes I think I married the wrong woman, absolutely. But I had a happy time being a lawyer. A perfectly happy time. I remember my last case I was criminal law, and I represented somebody charged with a daring break on, I think it was Dixon's, anyway, one of those sort of high street ones, and I got him off successfully, and he paid my fee, and he threw in a flat screen TV as well, which was absolutely beautiful from what's. But we've had our troubles in the law, more so since I left it. Just recently there was a sort of most extraordinary thing. I'm sure wouldn't have happened in my day. There were two judges, a male judge and a female judge, and they were having an affair, and they were having an affair with their Brazilian cleaner. And it all became the Brazilian cleaner, I think it was blackmailing, it was alleged to be blackmailing the male judge, and it was like a menage a trois. I mean, this wouldn't have happened in my day. The most extraordinary thing went on. And the odd thing was, because this again, the judges didn't do this when I was there, the male judge was videoing himself having sex with this Brazilian girl who was his cleaner, which is a fantastic. I mean, it's hard enough to do, really, isn't it, in itself? I mean, you've got your equipment pointing in the right direction. You've got to press the buttons, and you've got to get the video to work. So it's absolutely. And who knew there was a female judge who would have a Brazilian? So it's absolutely extraordinary thing going on. But anyway, so we can't escape that. We've got to concentrate. This is a desperate time we're living in. I mean, there's an annual event, so you must have had this done last year. But a lot of water has flown under the bridge since last year. Indeed, if you live in the Tewkesbury area, a lot of water has flown over the bridge. We've got this relatively new Prime Minister in the shape of Gordon Brown, and the new Chancellor of the Exchequer in the shape of a badger. So it's got. It's an iron rule. It's an iron rule. Whenever the Norman Lamont, he looked like a badger as well, and he was a disaster. Don't appoint a chancellor who's black and white. It's just. So my brief really was to mix comedy and finance, rather like the American subprime market. But it seemed to go quite well with Gordon Brown when he was started off. Remember he had blue tongue, which was his fault really for kissing the bottom of Margaret Thatcher. But he dealt with that. But we're now in the Tottenham Hotspur of economies at the moment, aren't we? And, sorry, there's always a few. Normally they keep quiet, mind you. But no, actually, there's some good news today. You wouldn't have heard it necessarily if you're on your way here. For Juan de Ramos, the Tottenham manager, he's got 6 games to prove he's a good enough manager. That's the good news. The bad news is that one of the games is football. But there it is. Now. Now, see, look, no, when I'm in a nice friendly gathering like this, and I can tell it's a friendly gathering, it's a much friendlier than the last speech that I did, which was at John Prescott's wedding anniversary. That's who could have worked that out? Who would have known that he was the Ron Jeremy of British politics? Now you can't laugh at that; it just indicates you know what I'm talking about. But that's. Where even when he told his cabinet colleagues he was having a bit on the side, they just assumed he meant he was having an extra portion of onion rings. But he was having sex in the office with a member of staff. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, leaving the door. Well, I say left the door. I mean, he couldn't shut it. He couldn't get in otherwise. But no, I'm rambling now. See, look, what So these days, there's so many different things going on. We can expect more surprises in the course of the thing than there is in a Gordon Brown cabinet reshuffle. Peter Mandelson's back in the cabinet. I mean, who predicted that? You didn't predict? You didn't welcome? I don't know. He's, but by the time we finish tonight, he might have resigned again, for all we know. But he's vowed this time it will be different. He won't get caught. Yes, in fact, he's looking to set a record. Look at this World Book of Records, or is to resign from every post in the cabinet. In fact, Gordon Brown's just sort of working his way through unpopular figures to bring back Margaret Thatcher to join the cabinet, just to prove something.